Hello everyone from a very sunny St. John's campus of Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador. My name is Janet Herron. I'm an Alumni Engagement Officer at Memorial and your host for today's event. I'm here with Dr. Jamie Skidmore, a professor in Memorial's Department of English, specializing in theater arts and film and video production. I know those of you attending can't see who else is in the room for the event, but we have over 160 registrants for this event, which we're thrilled about, and we have people joining every second. So we are delighted that you have chosen to spend some time with us today to hear about the possibilities of an alumni go abroad experience. We're going to begin today's event, as always, with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups, and we acknowledge with respect the histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province. We encourage everyone to reflect on these lands from where you are located and the Indigenous peoples for whom these lands are traditional territory. At the Office of Alumni Engagement, we are focusing on many ways to engage for you to connect with Memorial from anywhere in the province, the country, and the world. And we're working diligently to foster opportunities for alumni and friends to celebrate their connections with Memorial and with each other. MUN ALUM 101 was born out of the need to reach out to alumni during the first few months of the pandemic. It has since evolved to become a cornerstone of our alumni engagement activities, offering the latest information on key topics from Memorial University's own experts. Today's event has a slightly different flavor. Dr. Skidmore is indeed an expert in many fields, and we'll get to his official bio in a few seconds. But we're looking for feedback and interest from you, our alumni audience, around this opportunity to study abroad yourselves without going back to the classroom full time. Your input today and following will be crucial in helping to shape this initiative and other such experiential learning opportunities in the future. Just a few housekeeping issues. A Q&A will follow Dr. Skidmore's initial presentation. I will be monitoring the Q&A and the chat functions, which you'll find at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Please try to keep your questions short and try to post them as soon as possible. Don't leave them to the last minute. But Dr. Skidmore has agreed to stay on even past 2 o'clock if we need to cover any and all questions. Attendees are not able to unmute your microphone or turn on your video, but you can communicate with other attendees through the chat, and you can also enable closed captioning on the bottom left-hand side of your screen so you don't miss anything. There's also the option to customize your view of the presentation if you click on the dots over on the right-hand side of your screen. We are streaming live, but this session is also being recorded, and all those who registered will receive a link to the event and a follow-up email. So we encourage you to share that link widely to anyone else who might be interested in the opportunity we are talking about today. There's also going to be a short survey included in the follow-up email that we ask you all to fill out. So on with our show, it is my very great pleasure to officially introduce our special guest today. Dr. Jamie Skidmore is a professor in the English department at Memorial University, specializing in theater arts and film and video production. Dr. Skidmore has been working in theater and video production for almost 30 years as a designer, director, technician, and educator. He has designed productions for RCA Theatre, Artistic Fraud of Newfoundland, She Said Yes, Andy Jones, Theatre Conspiracy, and more. In 2006, Dr. Skidmore was the production manager and technical director for the Magnetic North Theatre Festival, the largest theatre festival in English in Canada. In the 1980s, he completed a diploma in radio and television broadcasting at Algonquin College in Ottawa. He He worked in the broadcasting industry as a professional video editor for a number of years before moving into professional theater. To date, Dr. Skidmore has brought 100 students to the Harlow campus, and that's since he began taking students on these trips in 2010. And for many of these students, ask any of them, they often will say that this is the highlight or has been the highlight of their memorial experience. And for his sins, he is leading another 11 students on their trip of a lifetime in the spring of 2023. So I really think there is no better person to discuss the opportunities of an alumni study abroad experience than Dr. Skidmore. So I'm going to hand it over to him right now. And Jamie, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Janet, and thank you to the Office of Alumni Affairs for letting me talk about this today. So I'm just going to do a little presentation. And as Janet mentioned, I've been to Harlow 4 times, and I have my 5th semester coming up in the spring with students. It's always a wonderful time. Many of you, of course, are MUN alumni who've been to Harlow and are thinking of going back for nostalgic reasons. And so for some of you, this will be your first time. And I know myself as an undergrad, I went to the only other university that has a physical campus in the UK, Queen's University. And I never went to our campus in the UK. I didn't feel that, number one, maybe I couldn't afford it at the time, and number two, I thought it might interfere with my my plan for finishing my university degree. And I'm sure some of you were in that situation as undergrads as well. So this is quite a unique experience. And today we're really trying to feel out if there's an interest for it, if there is, how it should work, and things of that nature. So I've put together a proposal for it, and we'd love your feedback, what works, what doesn't work, and what you're interested in. So I'll just mention that all of the images you see are from my former trips to Harlow with my students. We're proposing a 2-week trip, and right now we have 4 potential slots that we're thinking about. Nothing is in stone yet, but either the end of August in 23 or 24, or the beginning of December in those years. And I'll talk about why as we move along. But generally, there's slots that are open in Harlow that don't have students or many students on campus. Um, when we're in Harlow, we would stay in the Maltings residence, which is the main residence there, which is probably where many of you, if you did go previously, stayed. And unlike a student trip, you would have more options for private rooms. So if you desired a private room, you would get one, but you would also have the option of either sharing with someone you're traveling with or sharing with another member of the trip as well. And this is a picture of my daughter a few years ago at the Harlow campus. So here's some of the highlights of the trip. I'm going to start with some highlights, and then I'm going to go into more specifics as we go along. Here are my students in front of Buckingham Palace. So one of the main things we'll be doing is doing multiple trips into London to see theatre productions. We'll also do a field trip, which will include Stratford-upon-Avon and Warwick Castle, which is just outside of Stratford. It's just 20 minutes away. And here are just a few images from one of my many trips to Warwick Castles. I've been there 3 or 4 times with students. It's quite a beautiful castle. There's a lot to do there. It's quite a nice half-day adventure that we go on. And here's a couple of my former students in stocks. I guess they got in a bit of trouble there. And this is one of the many houses in Stratford-upon-Avon related to Shakespeare that you can tour into as well. We'll also go on some sort of a high tea. This image shows more of a low tea. Again, I'm with my daughter in this case in York at the Teddy Bear tea room. But we would probably do a higher end high tea. I took my students to this house, Donny House, just outside of Harlow on one of the trips where we did have high tea. And here we all are waiting for the tea and the various treats to arrive. I'm sure many of you know what a high tea is. Basically, tea or coffee, possibly sandwiches, and all sorts of lovely desserts like scones or scones and jam and heavy cream and cookies and all sorts of delicious things. We would also do a Harlow pub walk, not a pub crawl so much as a pub walk. We do this probably maybe even the first day we arrive in Harlow. There's a lot of pubs close to campus, and it's a good way to get to know the area. This is the Marquis of Granby, right across the street from campus. There's the Crown just down the street, and then just slightly further afield, there's the Green Man Inn as well. Um, if we go in the summer, we'll do certain things. But if we go in December, one of the highlights would be going to the Christmas markets and the Christmas shows as well. I'll talk about those in a few minutes. And this is just one of our many celebrations on a late November trip to Harlow. Um, the City of London is magnificent at Christmas time. I sent Janet a little video, a travel log that I made with some students one time, just to sort of show off Harlow and London a little bit. And you'll see Covent Garden like decked out in the Christmas decorations. But all over London, there's beautiful decorations. This is during the daytime, so it doesn't really capture it well. But here's an angel flying over one of the streets. The whole street would have been full of these. Here's the Cuddy Sark out in Greenwich, all lit up on its mast. And we'll go and see some Christmas shows as well. This one I actually went to with my family. It was a production of the Nutcracker. But we'll definitely see some pantomimes. A lot of you are probably familiar with pantomimes. They're fairly unique to the UK, although we do them here in St. John's every couple of years now based on that model. And basically, it's a fable or fairy tale that has been contemporized by adding contemporary music and politics to it. They tend to be quite funny and hilarious and have a lot of really interesting conventions. This is a production of Peter Pan that I saw with my students in Greenwich. And if we do end up going at Christmas and not at in the summer, in the summertime we'd go to the Globe Theatre, of course, which is Shakespeare's Globe. It's an outdoor theater, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The on the same grounds attached to that is the Sam Wanamaker Theater. Sam Wanamaker was the architect for the new Globe, and so this is their winter theater, and it's all lit by candlelight. So if we are there in the wintertime, we'd at least attempt to get tickets for a show at the Wanamaker. As long as there's something going on, we should be able to do so. And it's not the greatest example of Christmas markets, but this is a picture I took. You can see St. Paul's in the distance. We're right along the Thames, and this is just the very edge of the Christmas market. It extends way, way down the Thames, and these are all over London as well. And there's also a Christmas market in Stratford at this time of year, which we would also visit. Um, so basically, with this trip, we'd be going to see a lot of theater. I'll talk a bit more about how many shows in a moment. And but most days after seeing theater, we'd meet up, we'd have some coffee or tea, and we'd have a chat. Before we go, we'd probably have a few sessions where I teach you a little bit about analyzing theater, about understanding its various elements and how to look at all the parts and understand what's going on below the surface and what's being conveyed, and just trying to understand a whole different level of theater performance that you may or may not have been aware of to varying degrees. So I think that'll be really fun. We can also talk about what doesn't all have to be analytical. We can also talk about what we really liked and what we didn't like and what was fascinating about a show and things of that nature as well. I'm going to go back a slide. We would hold the coffee talks either in the large common room in the Maltings, which is a large, beautiful room with a pyramid ceiling, or we might meet up in our one-room schoolhouse and meet in the classroom, or, a combination of the two, so that we can try and experience everything on campus and, get in all the spaces. Some logistics. Here's a picture of the Maltings. So we would we would see up to 7 shows in London, either 2 musicals or 2 pantos, depending on the time of year. I should mention that London is 30 to 40 minutes by train from Harlow, so it's really, really close and convenient. This image is of a production of Matilda that we saw, And I should say, like, if we go to two pantos, we would probably still see a musical as well at Christmas time. We, as I mentioned, would go to either the Wanamaker or the Globe, and we would get all higher end seats. And what I mean by that is not necessarily that they're the absolute best seats in the house. They can be hundreds of pounds, but there would be, there would be high value seats, and we're usually quite lucky in getting. Um, very few theaters have bad seats. We wouldn't get any obstructed views or anything of that nature. That's usually one of the things that make them bad. Or if you have to sit on this side and have to kind of twist yourself, we'd avoid those. But because we would be part of a group, we tend to get better seats for the for what we're paying in pounds as well. So we could get quite lucky. For example, the group I'm taking to Stratford, we had a certain amount we could pay, and then we ended up getting the premium seats in the theater, which would normally be like 20 pounds more for what we could afford, what we'd budgeted for. So we're in the best seats in the house to see Cymbeline in May. And speaking of seeing Cymbeline, that's at the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford. And we'd also see one or two shows there. And the reason I say one or two is it really depends on what's playing at the time. With our trip, only Cymbeline is playing at the Royal Shakespeare um, Theater, so we may at the Swan, so we may go and see another play, or more likely go on a ghost walk. So we would do something like that with this group as well. Other activities include the Harlow pub tour I was talking about. Again, low key, not like a student pub crawl. Harlow and London walking tours. Visit some galleries and museums such as the National Gallery. I mentioned Stratford and Warwick, and also looking into doing backstage tours as well. Um, the As far as meals go, for the most part, you make your own breakfasts. So you'd get a couple of Harlow breakfasts. We would use high tea as a meal. We make sure we get sandwiches and things of that nature. Typically, what we would do though is we would have Harlow brunches. So, if you can wait a bit longer, um, you can just there are kitchens available to you where you can make some toast or something of that nature. Or if you can just wait a bit longer, you can just have a huge, delicious brunch made by the chef at Harlow. We also have three Harlow campus dinners, and that number is based on the fact that that number is based on the fact that a lot of the evenings will be in London seeing shows or in Stratford seeing shows. And with the shows we see, two of them we look at making dinner with the show packages. For example, if we went to two musicals, we try and connect dinner to that. And then we'd be looking at 9 restaurant meals. The expenses that are included as part of the trip. Most of the meals, as I just discussed, except for breakfast. The accommodations, again, at the Maltings. In Stratford, we would have a discussion about that. We could either decide to stay at the beautiful hostel where students traditionally stay with me, which is just outside of town, or we could stay in a nice hotel, which is close to everything. And The theater tickets, all of the transportation for our trips. So any of the trips to and from Harlow to London, our transportation to go to Stratford upon Avon. It also includes tuition to cover, for example, the coffee talks and the analyses that we're looking at, and the approximate cost. And this could vary, but we're looking at $6,000 to cover all of that, which we think is quite a reasonable rate for 2 weeks in the United Kingdom. The expenses that aren't included is airfare. Of course, you're coming from all over potentially from all over the world. Some of you may even be in the UK already. We would try to, if there's a lot of people coming from St. John's, we'd probably try to coordinate something together, maybe get a group rate if there's enough people. And Also, as I mentioned for a third time, most breakfasts are not included in the package. Here's a rough look at I just got a couple more slides. Here's a rough look at our day to day. On the first day, we'd fly into London, and on the 14th day, we'd fly home. In between, arrive in London, do a walking tour, whatever you get to, a distant country, you want to try to stay awake till bedtime. So that would help a bit. We'll maybe do the pub walk that day, maybe do it later in the semester. There's a couple of other opportunities. The next day we'd go into London, do a walking tour, visit either the Globe or the Wanamaker. These could move around anywhere within the schedule. It's just very rough. Do our group discussions in the mornings, and just, maybe go see two shows in one day, see a musical, head out to Stratford, go to the castle, do a Stratford tour. I've built in a free day, and I should mention that you will have lots of free time as well. Like we go to London in the mornings, you'll have, the day to explore. You'll have lots of time to do your own thing, or you can, wait and go into London a bit later if you want to have a nap or whatever the case may be. But yeah, we'll have a free day in there for you to do your own thing. Maybe do your laundry or just relax in Harlow. You'll visit things like the Tower of London. Sorry, I just had a cold last week, so I have a little bit of congestion. Um, but we would have a big final feast at the very end, and we do that almost every trip to Harlow. Go to a local restaurant like the Green Man Inn, and just have a big local feast. Um, Speaking of feasts, Harlow itself caters to all your dietary needs, and we'd make sure that was the case with any restaurants we went to as well. If you'd like to join us, again, Janet's going to put out a little survey so you can let us know when you would like to go. I've also included Janet's contact information. So if you are really interested, let her know as soon as possible. And if you have any additional questions we don't get to today, or if you're watching this online later, just get in touch with me at skidmore@mun.ca. I believe I'm the only Skidmore in the province. And we also are wondering if you'd like a certificate of completion of some sort for this program as well. It's an idea that that just came up to our committee the other day, so we haven't really looked into it too much. And that is the end of my presentation. So thank you.
I'm back. Thank you so much, Jamie. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Now, we need your questions and we need your comments. We do have a comment here from Colleen Hanrahan, who says that she is very supportive of this initiative. As a U of T grad pre-COVID, she receives, sorry, I'm trying to read this while I've got too much open. Hold on one second. U of T grad pre-COVID, I received promotions for the U of T alumni travel programs. When completing my PhD at Walden U, students completed residences which were held in many locations, including Madrid, Miami, and Washington, to name a few. Travel broadens one's horizons and is well worth the investment of time and money. I was able to interact with people from across the globe. This is a fabulous opportunity. So that's great to hear, Colleen. Glad you feel that way. And I just need to pop up quickly a slide from our friends at Johnson Insurance because they do support so many of our memorial alumni engagement activities. And just a reminder that Johnson offers Memorial University alumni specially designed policies and preferred rates on home and auto insurance, as well as travel insurance. So you can call the number provided or visit the web link for additional information. So now it's time for questions. So get at us with your questions. I have a few to start us off, Jamie, if that's okay. I was wondering, what about if people need or have accessibility issues? What is the Harlow campus designed for that?
So the Harlow campus has at least one room that is for people with disabilities. And beyond that, we would have to look into that further. I know Christine Casey might be on here still, who's the general manager.
Yep. She is.
There would be a lot of walking on this trip. So I would, again, we would have to do, double check, but I would think all of the things we're going to are wheelchair accessible. Theaters are wheelchair accessible. We would make sure not to do any bookings before going into those spaces. But there are certain distances that we do have to travel, which people would need to keep in mind. For example, it's about an 8-minute walk from campus to the train station. And it's a gentle walk downhill and a gentle walk uphill going in each direction. But that is something to keep in mind. But a lot of these things are probably things we can overcome if we just spend some time and look into them.
Right. Can you, you might have said earlier, but can you just give a kind of geographical, like how far is Harlow from London?
Yeah, so it's in an incredibly convenient location. By train, depending on the train you get on, it's 30 to 40 minutes into London. And so that's not including the walk to and from the train station. And it's actually a lot of fun because for example, we go and see a show and we'll have the coffee discussions the next day. But we also spend a lot of time on the trains discussing what we've seen and what we've done that day, and our various activities. And so it's really nice as anyone who's traveled in a group um, knows that, it's really nice having that time on the train to get to know each other, to chat, kind of move around between the group each trip and get to know different people. So it's actually a really nice part of the trip, and it's a beautiful ride in as well. And you get a good scope of the countryside. Harlow it's a town and it's a city, but it's surrounded by a lot of rural area, and it's really pretty. You see a lot of like animals and cows, and you go by the canal, and then going into London, it's pretty cool seeing it from the train. And we often end up in Liverpool Station, which is just this like gorgeous, station in London.
Robert Kelsey wonders if you have accommodations for married couples and would shared accommodations be less expensive?
Yeah, so shared accommodations are always slightly less expensive, and we would definitely have accommodations for married couples. You'd be most likely in your own beds, but we'd put you in a room with two beds essentially. And there's no double beds in Harlow. It's like it's they're lovely residences, but they are student residences. So
Yeah. Maybe in a pinch you could push them together if you had to sleep together in the same
yeah,
bed.
and there are a few other accommodations there on the campus if they are available, but they do tend to be considerably more expensive. But
Yeah.
there are apartments and stuff.
Amber, and I think I know the answer to this, but Amber wants to know, do both members of the couple need to be MUN alumni? Good question.
No,
No.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, and in fact, I've only ever taken MUN students, but like on my first trip, for example, two of my students, the only courses they ever took at MUN were at Harlow. So one was a U of O, a University of Ottawa graduate, and one of them was actually a Carleton University graduate, both from Ottawa. And they just signed up as MUN students and did this program. And of course, you don't need to be students for this program. It's not meant as a student program. It's meant as someone who is at a different point in their lives.
Yeah. And I don't even think necessarily you even have to be a MUN alumni to attend this program, do you?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Great. Let's just see if there's any more questions. And I did have someone say they were very interested. They would prefer to be going in December rather than August, but we are going to include that in our follow-up survey. Can you tell us a little bit more about because of course the food at Harlow is incredibly important, and I have heard rumors that they have a fantastic chef there and the food is really spectacular. I've heard rumors of great English breakfasts. Can you confirm that, Jamie?
Yes, the chef there, Nick, is a wonderful chef, and we have really well thought out meals. Sometimes our if we I mentioned we're going to do a lot of brunches, and sometimes that brunch could be an English breakfast. Uh, we'll know everyone's dietary needs, so Nick will always take those into account. Whether you're a vegan or a vegetarian, whether only eat red meat or never eat red meat. Uh, he would look after all of those things. In the dinners, there's always lots of salads and lots of variety of salads in per meal. Like there's five different salads, like you can choose from or take them all. There's lots of veggie dishes and lots of meat dishes, just lots and lots of deliciousness really overall.
We actually did about a little, well, it was over a year ago, but we did a hidden memorial with and included tours of the Harlow campus with a young alumni who's living over in the UK now. So I'm going to post the link to that hidden memorial in the chat, and we're also going to include it in the follow-up email because that way as well, people can really see what the rooms look like and the campus itself. Um,
Yeah, and that's I think that's by Sarah Inkpen you were saying
yep,
yesterday, who went. I'm pretty sure she went over with the English department, maybe with Annette Stavely once upon a
I
time.
think so. Yeah.
And she's from Clarenville. I know her quite well. And she ended up moving back there and living there. She has a career there now. We did a program on social justice a number of years ago, and um, one of our students works there now for an NGO for a non-government organization in social justice. There's a question if we went in December, which part of this December? This still needs to be negotiated with Harlow, but we'll be looking at the beginning of December, which raises the question as well as how many students would we take? And we would be looking at a minimum of 10 students and a maximum of 24, but that maximum could be impacted. Like right now, there's a big free spot in summer of 23, but that's coming up really soon. But in December, there may be students on campus, so we would have to negotiate space to that maximum of 24. May work, it may not, depends on how many people are sharing rooms and who else is there and things of that nature. So it might be the maximum might be a bit less.
Right. Um, Anthony Cotter mentions that he went to Harlow during the fall of 1982, and it was the highlight of his university education. So there you go.
Yeah, and that's really common. Actually, Anthony was also at the 50th anniversary at the Harlow campus.
Hmm.
I was actually the moderator for the anniversary here at the St. John's campus up in Signal Hill. And that's what I always hear from my students is that it's basically the highlight of their university careers, and it's one of the reasons we're offering it to them again to have that nostalgic experience later in their lives when you'll enjoy it in a different way, but it's just nice to go back, nice to spend some serious time on campus to do some of the activities that you may or may not have done at the time, see lots of theater, spend some lot time in London, Stratford. We just think it'll be a great experience, and an opportunity if you didn't go, an opportunity for you as well.
Just checking our questions here. Kristen, who is the general manager at Harlow, said she went to Harlow for education in 2005 and never left. Oh, that's funny. Any more questions?
I think we may have covered them all.
We might have. That's fine. We don't have to. And Kristen has also mentioned that everyone can follow Harlow on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn for new videos. Website is in the midst of rebuilding. Hold on. The next steps. Next steps are we're going to be sending out a follow-up email, and people who are interested are asked to send us an email here in the Office of Alumni Engagement. And Jamie, as he said earlier at the top of the show, so to speak, he's very welcome to answer any questions you might have that you might want to ask him privately or anything that comes up that you haven't thought about right now. This is the sort of initial planning stages, but judging from the number of people who have attended today's information session, looks like there's a lot of interest. So that's great. Jamie's email again, everyone, is skidmore@mun.ca. He's the only Skidmore at Memorial, probably in Newfoundland. And Yeah, so please watch out for the follow-up email, which should be coming with a link to this recording, probably tomorrow or at the latest Thursday. And then we'll take it from there. And you can answer some of our questions. The questions basically are asking, what time of year would you prefer, that August or December? And just just some general questions to get some additional information. So that's it. That's it, I
Yes,
think.
yeah. London at Christmas time is my favorite time. Like really traveling anywhere in Europe, it's so much fun. And the weather is nice, so it's a bit
Yeah,
warmer than Newfoundland.
yeah, exactly.
Maybe not warmer than California if that's where you're coming from.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I wish I have a question about reviewing the cost again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we're looking at $6,000, and that includes all of your accommodations. It includes basically we feed you for every meal except for a few breakfasts. It includes around 9 or 10 theater shows
In very good
and
seats.
in very good seats, and also transportation uh, with anything involved with our program. So going into London, coming back to Harlow, going to Stratford, we'd rent a coach coming back from Stratford, but it doesn't include your airfare. It also includes tuition fee as well. It doesn't include your airfare. What else does it not include? It doesn't include some breakfasts and um,
But
something
most,
else I
it's
can't
all
remember.
your food except some breakfast, though,
Yeah,
correct? Yeah. So
exactly.
that's, yeah.
Let
And
me
all
just see.
your
I've got this.
transportation once you're there, and your accommodation, and all your
Oh,
theater tickets, and
the
your,
one thing I didn't emphasize that much was that it was on the slide, but I didn't mention it, was it doesn't include your airport transfer as well.
okay.
So again, if there's a lot of us coming on the same flight, then might look at booking a coach or at the very least traveling across London together.
Right.
It is a long trip from Heathrow to campus. And so we'd look at, if there's, 10 of us, we'd look at getting a small coach but that would be an extra fee as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot.
Okay, perfect. I think that's
Yeah.
it for right now. So stay tuned, everyone. Let us know if you're interested. Keep an eye open for that email. And, um, next steps will be announced when they're announced.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Jamie, so much. I really would like to thank Jamie because it is his great vision and his love of teaching that has inspired this idea for Memorial Alumni. Um, Thanks to all of you out there for choosing to spend some time with us. And we do have a couple of MUN Alum 101s coming up in November. Nurse Practitioners and the Future of Healthcare is on November 15th, and Demystifying University Research on November 21st. And once again, keep your eye open on your email for our follow-up email with our survey. And that is it. And thank you so much for attending, everyone.